Welcome to Deep Thoughts, a podcast designed to take you on an introspective journey into the mindsets and strategies that fuel personal growth. In every episode, we'll explore the intersection of psychology, spirituality, and real-world tactics, guiding you through powerful methods to elevate your health, wealth, relationships, and overall well-being. From deep dives into transformative habits and mindsets to candid discussions about the challenges we face in today's fast-paced world, Deep Thoughts is here to remind you of the untapped potential that lies within. If you're ready to disconnect from the distractions and connect with the tools and insights needed to create lasting change, this show is your sanctuary for self-discovery and empowerment. Tune in, reflect, and take action towards a more vibrant and fulfilling life.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive into the world of attention spans. You know, we've got a ton of research articles for this one, and a bunch of statistics, even some historical stuff that I think you'll find pretty interesting. We'll try to figure out how long the average person can actually focus these days, what affects their attention, how it's changed over time, and why it matters so much now in the digital age.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure.
Yeah.
There's just so much research coming out now about attention. It really changes how we think about learning and working and just interacting with everything around us.
All right, well, let's jump right in. I saw this statistic that said the average human attention span is only 8.25 seconds. Isn't that crazy? That's even shorter than a goldfish.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. That goldfish thing is kind of a myth, though. It's way more complicated than that. It's not that easy to measure attention span in humans, and especially not in animals. What's really interesting, though, is that attention spans do seem to be getting shorter. Researchers are really trying to figure out why that is.
So is it that we can't focus as well anymore? Or are we just adjusting to all the information that's out there these days?
That's a great question. I think it might be a little bit of both. Back in the year 2000, the average attention span was about 12 seconds. By 2013, it was down to 8 seconds. Now in 2023, it's 8.25 seconds. That's a pretty big drop in just a couple of decades.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it. We've got information coming at us from every direction, notifications and updates and everything. It's almost like our brains are being trained to just jump from one thing to the next really fast.
Exactly. All that stimulation for the digital world could be changing our brains, and it might be making it harder to focus on just one thing for a long time. But it also could be making us better at switching between tasks quickly, filtering out information. There are a lot of factors at play.
So it's not that we're becoming less attentive overall, just that we're paying attention differently.
I think that's a better way to put it. It makes you wonder what this means for how we learn or do our jobs, or even just have relationships, in a world that's built for short attention spans.
Right. It's like we've traded reading books for scrolling through our phones.
That's a good way to think about it. But it's not just about the digital age. Our brains naturally change as we get older, too. That plays a role.
Oh, so age matters, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Kids have shorter attention spans, of course. Usually it's about 2 or 3 minutes for each year they're old. But it's not just about age. Our genetics and our environment make a difference. And speaking of differences, research has actually found some pretty interesting things about attention and gender.
Really? What have they found?
Well, studies have shown that girls are better at ignoring distractions, and they're better at controlling impulses compared to boys the same age.
I wonder why that is. Do you think it's just biology? Or is it more about how boys and girls are raised?
It's probably both. Some researchers think that parts of girls' brains develop faster, the parts that control attention. Other researchers think that it's because of how we treat boys and girls differently, how we encourage them to play and interact with things. We need to do more research to figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it seems like there's still a lot we don't know about attention. But it's clear that the digital world is having a big impact on how we focus and how we process information.
Absolutely. It's the elephant in the room. Digital devices are everywhere. And the stats on screen time are kind of scary.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
Well, in 2004, the average screen attention span was about 2.5 minutes. By 2023, it was down to just 47 seconds. It's a big drop.
Wow, less than a minute. It is hard to focus on anything for that long these days. I mean, there's always something popping up or playing automatically or something new to click on.
Right. And it's not just how much time we spend on screens. It's that we're constantly being bombarded with stuff. And it makes our brains crave new things and instant gratification. And that makes it harder and harder to do things that need focus, like reading a book, or having a real conversation, or even just sitting quietly and thinking.
It's like our brains are being trained to need that constant stimulation. And then anything that takes patience or focus just feels boring.
Yeah, you got it. And that has a lot of implications for everything, for learning and working and just for how we live in the world. But before we get into that, let's talk about another myth, the myth of multitasking. A lot of people think they're good at it, but the research shows something completely different. Welcome back to our deep dive on attention spans. Last time, we talked about how the digital age is changing how we focus, but the good news is you can actually train your attention, just like a muscle.
That's good to hear. Honestly, I was starting to get a little worried about my own attention span after all that. So how do we do it? How do we train our attention?
We'll think about training for a marathon. You wouldn't try to do that in the middle of a noisy carnival, right?
No way. I need peace and quiet to focus.
It's the same with attention. You need to create an environment where you can minimize distractions, like maybe silencing notifications, putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, or even using noise-canceling headphones.
So like a focus sanctuary.
Exactly. Of course, we can't always control our environment. Sometimes you got to work in a busy office or a coffee shop. And that's where the real training comes in, learning to focus even when there are distractions.
Right. Okay, so how do we do that?
One of the best ways is mindfulness meditation.
Mindfulness. Everyone's talking about mindfulness these days. Does it actually help with focus?
There's a lot of research that says it does. Even just a few minutes of mindfulness can help you control your attention better, and it can help you stop your mind from wandering so much.
So it's like a brain workout.
Yeah, exactly. When you focus on your breath or your body or the sounds around you, you're teaching your mind to stay in the present moment and not get distracted by thoughts or things happening around you.
Okay, mindfulness. I get it. What else can we do to boost our attention?
Another great technique is the Pomodoro technique.
Pomodoro, like the tomato. What do tomatoes have to do with focus?
It's named after those tomato-shaped kitchen timers. Basically, you work in focused bursts for 25 minutes, and then you take a short break for 5 minutes.
It's like interval training for your brain.
You got it. It helps you stay focused and avoid getting mentally tired. And those short breaks let your brain reset, so you're ready for the next round of focused work.
I like that. Sometimes I get so caught up in what I'm doing that I forget to take breaks, and then I end up feeling totally drained.
That happens to a lot of people. Our brains aren't meant to focus for hours and hours without a rest. And speaking of rest, we can't forget about sleep.
Ah, sleep. The reset button for everything.
Exactly. People don't always realize how important sleep is for your brain. But research shows that even one night of bad sleep can mess with your attention and your memory and even your decision-making.
I know. I'm definitely not at my best when I don't sleep well.
And it's not just about feeling tired. Not getting enough sleep actually messes with the networks in your brain, the ones that control your attention. So if you want to keep your attention sharp, aim for 7 or 8 hours of good sleep every night.
Okay, so we've got mindfulness, the Pomodoro technique, and a good night's sleep. That's a good start. But what about technology itself? Can we really get our attention back when we're surrounded by all these digital distractions?
Absolutely. And that's what we'll talk about in part 3. We'll look at some tech-savvy strategies and some mindset shifts that can help you navigate the digital world and keep your focus and well-being intact.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our attention span deep dive. And the big question is, how do we actually get our attention back? You know, in a world that's full of digital distractions.
It's tough, that's for sure. But the interesting thing is, technology can actually be part of the solution, not just the problem.
Oh, okay, that's good. So how do we do that? How do we make our devices help us focus instead of distracting us?
Well, one thing you can do is declutter your digital space. It's like spring cleaning for your phone and your computer. Unsubscribe from all those emails you never read, delete apps you don't use, organize your home screen so there's not so much clutter. It can really help create a calmer digital environment.
I like that, like a digital minimalist haven. But what about the apps that we do need, the ones that are always trying to get our attention?
Yeah, that's where mindful app usage comes in. First, you have to be aware of how you're using apps. Pay attention to how much time you spend on them and how they make you feel. Once you know your habits, you can start setting some boundaries. A lot of apps actually have features that can help, like timers or do not disturb modes. That can help you limit your usage and cut down on distractions.
So we're taking back control instead of letting the apps control us?
Exactly. And there's a lot of support out there. There are apps and browser extensions that are designed to help you manage distractions and get your focus back. You know, like website blockers that stop you from going to certain sites while you're working, or focus modes that silence notifications and make your digital workspace less cluttered.
So the key is to be intentional, set boundaries, and use technology to our advantage.
That's it. But there's also a bigger mindset shift that's important if you really want to get your attention back in the digital age.
A mindset shift? What do you mean?
It's about being more aware of how you interact with the digital world and being more intentional about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just scrolling mindlessly or clicking on every notification, stop and think for a second, why am I doing this? Is this really how I want to be spending my time and attention?
It's like taking a break from autopilot and making conscious choices about how we use technology.
Exactly. And that mindful approach can apply to how we consume information online, too. We're constantly bombarded with news and opinions and updates. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. But remember, you don't have to read everything. Be picky about what you read. Choose sources you trust. And focus on content that you actually want to engage with.
It's not just about how much information we take in. It's about how we pay attention to it.
I agree. If we're more mindful of our digital habits, and if we pay more attention to our attention, we can get our focus back. And we can actually make our digital experiences more fulfilling and meaningful.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about those crazy stats about attention spans, we learned some practical tips for focusing better, and we explored the challenges and the strategies for mastering our attention in this digital world. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that attention is something we can control. It's a resource we can cultivate and protect and strengthen.
I think that's a great takeaway. And remember, this is just the beginning. The more we learn about attention, the better we can navigate the digital world and create lives that are both focused and fulfilling.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. We'll have links to all the research we mentioned in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, stay focused, and keep those attention muscles working.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.